So now we've gone ahead and gone over observational studies and experiments, it's time to talk about pros and cons. So in observational studies right away, the biggest pro for it is it's easier. First of all, it's easier to find people to actually sample. You're going to have more luck having people volunteer to participate if you're not trying to control their environment or force them to take certain actions. So in that way, observational study, it's easier to find people. Additionally, it's easier in terms of time. In a lot of cases, it's easier to ask people questions and do a retrospective observational study than it is to go ahead and run an experiment and take the time necessary to find the same type of results. On the same vein, it's also way cheaper normally to have an observational study. And that's because when you observe people, you don't have to control them as much, so you're not going to have to compensate them as much, or provide for an environment or the different treatment groups. For instance, if I wanted to test if vaping is actually good for your health or not, it's going to be way easier to find people who are already vaping and people who are not vaping and compare those two than it is to find a bunch of people and force them or pay them to let me make them either vape or not vape. So observational pros, easier to find people to sample, quicker time-wise, and it's cheaper. Now, that's kind of where the pros for an observational study run out a little bit. There's a lot of cons for it. That is, you have no control. And remember what we said before. If you have no control, that means no causation. Now, this is where everything kind of falls apart for us. Because if there's no causation, then in reality the question becomes like, why are we even doing this study? For instance, the majority of the health studies you see published in the news, like, oh, well, wine is associated with a longer life, or maybe eating chocolate causes you to have less of a risk of heart attack. A lot of those are observational. That is, we can look at people who are older, who haven't had those health issues, and ask them about their eating habits, maybe. And in those cases, well, we can't actually conclude that one causes the other. It might just happen to be that people who have more money are more likely to drink and more likely to live longer for other factors that are related to it. So, cons, no control, which means no causation. Let's talk about experiments now. So, the pros of an experiment. Complete control. What complete control means is that you can eliminate lurking variables. That is, if I wanted to test if running is actually going to cause you to lose weight, then I could force both groups to have exactly the same sleeping regimen, exactly the same eating regimen, and I could make one group run an hour a day and not allow the other group to run at all. That would allow me to narrow it right down to running, so complete control is awesome. It also means that I have causation. If I can run it down all the way to that one variable, then I can conclude that one thing is causing the other, or is completely related to it. Now, that's kind of where the pros of that end. Let's talk about cons. Cons, it's expensive. Takes a long time. And, well, there's another one, and that is there's kind of ethical concerns. And that is a really big ... because the ethical concerns are really something we need to spend some time talking about. This will be discussed further when we look at the what goes really wrong section. Because in reality, there have been experiments done in the past where in order to conclude that, yeah, something causes the other, we've done some really sketchy stuff.